we go. Wait a few seconds.
I hate it when I sit there and I got all these windows open up and then I sit there and run around the circle.
Yeah. Alright.
Well, some my windows change on me. That's the interesting part.
Okay, we're actually in the show now, Ed, so hold on. Hey everybody, it is Education by Ed. It is currently December 17th, 2017, and Ed's got some information that he wants to make sure that you can build on. Have a good foundation on your own property. Go ahead and take it away, Ed.
Now, I get into this so people comprehend. I was on the phone till about 11 o'clock this morning with just people going off on their birth certificate bond and insurance structures, and, you know, the people keep going on is don't, you know, get a birth certificate, don't do this, and then they're getting these letters from the hospital that are saying mandatory, if you don't do this, we're going to steal your kids. And people are getting upset, and it's like, I was listening to a gentleman this morning doing his talk show, and it's like, okay guys, but you're not filing and owning your child. That's what I'm going to get into tonight too, with taxes and the structure. I'm going to read this stuff, you're going to sit there and go, huh? You're going to realize that if you don't file on your child and claim your bloodline, you don't have a right. And that's exactly what our forefathers wrote the structure for. And people go, oh no, they can't do that. You know, they shouldn't do that. Excuse me. And you need to excuse yourself because they wrote the Constitution to protect we the people. They didn't write it to protect public employees. They didn't write it to protect immigrants that come in and rape, rob, and steal our country. That is the one point that they are doing today, that they do this, and people don't get how severe it really is. People say, oh, it shouldn't work that way. Where the hell do you guys tell me about saying it shouldn't work one way or another? It's like the deal on my talk show and what I do educate people on is they wrote it, I quote it. And that's the whole point. They wrote the structure, our forefathers put it in place. The House of Senate and Congress, remember the federal government is the British government. And as soon as you truly accept that the British government is the British government, not Americans, you're elected in public service, work for the British government. When you go to church with that black robe pope, okay, the black robe pope is the one that's dictating to you what's going on. And people go, oh no, that can't be reality, he doesn't have the rights. Well, he has the rights because you don't know your rights. That's the point. When you go into these courts, you don't have rights unless you file your rights. And when I was talking to a couple people yesterday this morning, the people were going, well, I went to court and I told the judge this, that, and the other thing. Doesn't matter what the hell you told the damn judge. Did you file it in court? Well, I know, why should I have to file in court? Why should I have to do this? Why should I have to do that? If you don't claim your standing, you have no right. That is the point. You have no rights unless you claim. Go ahead, somebody spoke up. Okay, apparently I must have heard an echo. But you don't have rights unless you file and claim them. And then once you file and claim them, you have to make sure the police department is noticed, the city hall is noticed, county commissioners are noticed. It does not mean that you have to sit there and go sit down and have a private little chat with these men and women. That is the one thing that you have to comprehend. You don't have to sit down and go talk to these men and women. You're filing with them because they are your elected and public servants. And once you accept that they're your public servant, instead of God, because God has nothing to do with it, and the Bible would lead you in a stray and a heartbeat, and that's the point the Bible does. They lead you in a stray and a heartbeat. Well, people got to realize and wake up to the real truth in this country. You know, they brought the Bible from England. The first Bible came from what they call Spain. And that's the point that you have to realize that comes from Spain and England. They're not American. Islam, not American. And that's the point that people have to comprehend. Oh, we need to help Islam. Oh, excuse you. Why the hell we need to help the terrorists? That is the one point that you have to comprehend, that you don't want to help the terrorists. And once you get the fact that you don't have to help terrorists, oh, what a concept. You know, that is the best thing. And I did write the filing on Cape Brown. I got the first one done on their office. That is the 1938 Foreign Registration Act. It is, I think it's on the website. It is public. I put it all over Facebook. And then this morning I got booted off of Facebook by, I believe I have a feeling that it was done by two people that were reporting me to Facebook for posting stuff on a couple of talk shows. Or a guy talked to this morning. And then one guy is out there telling everybody, you know, watch out for me because I'm nothing but a drunk and a pothead. Well, I would like to know where he gets his information because, you know, I get sick and tired of this man lying because, and the proof is, he's not even an American. He's a third generation immigrant, and he's upset because I proved the fact that you have to be lawful in this country, not legal to have rights. So, and if his grandfather didn't come into this country correctly, he could be deported. Yes, he can. And that's what he's pissed off about because I brought it to his attention, you know. And it's like, oh shit. I'm like, hey, this is the way the reality works. It's not a fantasy. If you don't like it, say la vie. Go on the next plane. Go on the next boat. Get the hell out of our country. We didn't invite people to this country. Native Americans didn't invite the terrorists that came up and showed up and brought their Bible to this country. No way, no how, no responsibility that we want to take with that structure, period. And that's where people have got to start coming to real reality and these circumstances. You could have all the arguments that you want. You could have all the things that you think is going to sit there and work for you. But change. See, until you comprehend the truth of what's going on in the world, that is the point. You know, that is the point. Until you become the point where you comprehend the truth, and that is the point. You have to know the truth. And if you don't know the truth, how do you expect somebody else to know the truth? You know, and that is the point that people do not get. And it's like I just got a guy that sent me an order on a kid's deal. And the whole point is knowing how to write these things up. You don't plead for an emotion. Emotion is a ship-bearing structure on the ocean. You insert your rights. You have to prove you're lawful or legal in this country. People say, well, why the hell do I have to prove that I'm lawful? Why the hell do I have to prove I'm legal? Hey, we have to know who's in this country. Our forefathers wrote it, and if you actually go to the Constitution itself, realistically, to the Constitution itself, clearly states that we already have an immigration act in this country. We already have an immigration act in this country. Our forefathers put the Immigration Act in reality years back, called 1770. That is the one point that people do not comprehend. It is a reality. It is true. Our forefathers did react. Our forefathers did. I hear somebody filing something. So, anyhow, the point is that these things are a reality that is going on in the real world. So, until you start standing up and until you make a claim for yourself, you have no rights. That is the one thing that you have. You have no rights unless you make sure that you claim your rights. And if you don't claim your rights, how do you expect them to honor your rights or your bloodline unless you own your bloodline? So you have to prove this stuff. This is where people go, oh, I don't have to prove this. I just do this and, I'm all of a sudden, God says, I'm man. Well, God doesn't give you rights. The Bible gives you rights. Oh, wait a minute. I lied. The Bible gives you no rights. The Constitution protects your rights. The Bible gives you instructions of enslavement and slavery. That is the point that people do get in responsibility of slavery. And that is true. That you are sitting there in the structure of being a slave. And everybody says, well, we know this, we've done the research, and it's like, okay, so if you know this, stop being a slave. That is the point. Once you stop being a slave, and you start filing and acting like you are the owner of you, things change. And the main thing is learn how to talk to your elected and public servants. That's the main thing. People go, oh, well, they're supposed to do this, they're supposed to do... They don't have to do a damn thing. Their job is to rape, rob, and pillage. That's exactly what their employment status is. Police have no authority to protect you. Their job is to monitor elected and public servants. Their job is to go after code breakers, and that is mainly their job. That goes after elected and public servants. That's the code breakers. They're supposed to, if a public servant breaks the code, they're supposed to arrest the public servant, which they do not do today. This is the saddest part what's going on today in the corruption that we are living today right now. We are truly living this structure in corruption in the fantasy of people's minds today. You have to know your standing. If you don't know who you are, this is how they get away with this structure. Damn computer's freezing up because I'm getting ready to get into this, and I hate it when it does this crap. Because somebody's got the back door of my computer, that's obvious. So anyhow, I'm posting this stuff on the YouTube channel as well, so people can sit there and see what I'm going to get into. Because it's like the thing that comes down to the whole bottom line is that everybody knows that the birth certificate is an insurance bond. So if you don't claim and own you, the state corporation owns you. That is called the British government. The federal government is the British government. And as soon as you accept that they are the British government, that's when you start winning. Because then you go to court and you're not sitting there pleading with a judge for your rights. And that's the other thing when I was talking to somebody earlier today on the phone. I asked them, did they file their rights? Did they file their paperwork? And they said, what do you mean? I didn't think I had to. I'm told that, they're supposed to honor this, they're supposed to do that, they have a constitutional oath. I don't have to sit there and file my rights. Well, how do you expect them to know who you are? You're in a foreign country. That's why when you send your certified and registered mail out, you get a green card. You ever heard of a green card? Doesn't a green card go into the records? Doesn't a green card mean that you're an immigrant? Doesn't a green card mean that you have no rights? See, that's the one thing that people do not comprehend, this reality. That's interesting, because YouTube is not letting me post anything right now. Okay, well, I've been through this before, apparently. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. It's just, it's just really frustrating. You try to get some stuff posted, and they want to fight you on it, so I'm going to have to do it in little bits and pieces. I think we'll try that one. But, that's the point that I'm going to get into on money, finances, the circumstances of how they react, how they do things. Because remember, you have to realize that it's you against they. And people go, well, that's not supposed to be the way it is. And it's like, you have to come to comprehension that these men and women who run your court system, remember, it's our court system, so they're running our public service system. And when they're running our system, oh, that's good, it won't let me post anything. So, alright, so I get the dilemma. Alright. So, but anyhow, it's our court system. And so they don't want you to know about your rights. Because if you know it, you have rights, not privileges. And they know this stuff. It's like a cop will tell you, well, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. They lie. Number one, you have to accept a cop, a judge, a cop, an attorney, a lawyer. And if you look up the term lawyer, it means liar. You look up the term attorney, that means liar. People will say, well, attorney and lawyer are separate. Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't see the separation in them. You know, I've never met an attorney that actually stood up for anything but his own pocketbook. Fact. I don't live in this mysterious fantasy world and common nice stuff that people say that this is, you know, where the Bible says this and the Bible says that, and that's what I keep going on. And people go, Ed, you're so hard on the Bible, and I said, the Bible doesn't give you rights. Show me where the Bible gives you rights. And then everybody goes, well, you know, it doesn't give you rights. And I'm trying to explain, you're right, the Bible does not give you rights, period. People go, well, the Bible says this, and then we have the Magna Carta, and that gives us rights too. Well, I would like to see where the Magna Carta gives you rights, because the Magna Carta came from where? England. And so when you go into a foreign court, you're going into a foreign court from England. It's knowing where the placement of these things are going, knowing how the circumstances of this work compared to what people want to argue about. I mean, it's like this one gentleman always wants to argue and slander me, and I get the point where he's doing this. You know, he does this, you know, trying to get people to go after me and all this stuff, and he does it for entertainment purposes. So, I mean, I'm not ignorant to this stuff. And then he gets upset because I don't sit there and get into fighting arguments with him, but I've even, like this morning, you know, he's slandering me on this other guy's message that he went live on today. And I'm sitting there going, you know, hey, let's make a live talk show. Let's go after this. Let's make sure this happens. I get tired of little scared little boys. And that's exactly what he is, a little scared little boy. So when we start realizing what men and women are in this country, 48 states united. That's 48 states. That does not include Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, all this other stuff that have been incorporated with the United States Incorporation. So you have to comprehend that there is a corporation of the United States that is not of we the people. That is a corporation of the British government. And that's the point that you really have to come to a terminology that realize that even Winston Churchill, all right, and that's the whole point. Winston Churchill lies. He was from England. That is the point. How come people don't see that? Oh, he did all this wonderful stuff for who? England. He didn't do anything for this country. That is the one point that you have to accept these facts. You know, I mean, and the other point is to pay attention. There's guys out there that are doing talk shows from Canada trying to incorporate the United States into Canada. Sorry, folks, it don't work that way. Honestly, it does not work that way. Canada is owned and controlled by the British government. It is not part of we the people. At all. Never has been, never will be. So it's one of those things that if you comprehend the structure of what's going on, then that way we have a lot of things that start progressing, and I hate using the devil's word, progressing, you know, the structure of progressing. And that's the one thing that is scary, because people use words. It's like people use the word choice. Well, choice gives you the right of yes or no. Choice gives you the right that you can sit there and go, well, I didn't mean to do it. It was my choice, so I have a right to make a choice and not be responsible. Either you're responsible and you make a decision, or you're telling the world that you're not responsible, and that's why the court system, your Vatican court system, has taken away your rights. Not only that, you didn't file on your rights, and most people don't even know about their rights, and they sure to heck don't file on them after they're 18 years old, because it's like in the state of Oregon, they passed administrative law, or rules. Remember, law is constitution. Rules and statutes and codes are administrative rules of the British government. That's the one thing that people have to know, the separation of legal and lawful. As soon as you know the separation of legal and lawful, that's going to sit there and give you a head start compared to everybody else. And then not only that, knowing how to file your ownership of you. He will say, oh, get rid of your birth certificate. Oh, get rid of your Social Security card. Social Security is a private contract, so long as that you are born in this country of 5 or more generations. If you are an immigrant, it's privileges, and technically you're not even allowed to get Social Security administration fees at all. Social Security is a contract that is designed for lawful bloodline Americans only by the original contract. And if people read the original contract, you'll see that it's only designed for lawful bloodline Americans. It's not designed for we the people of the world. And that's the one point that I was going with somebody earlier today, that, you know, you have to comprehend that this ain't the world. The United States is for we the people only. We're not part of a world structure. You know, oh, God says this, and it's like, take your God, take it back to England, we don't want it. That's the point, we don't want it. We don't want England. That is the point that people do not comprehend the real truth. We don't want England here. We don't like England, we don't adore it, we don't want them. I sure don't want England. I don't care about England. Not my problem. And technically, if you go by the law, we're not supposed to have anything to do with England. That's a fact. We're not supposed to have anything to do with England at all. As soon as people realize that, and that, remember, that includes the Bible. Most people don't get that includes the Bible. Bible came from England, not American. People go, oh, Ed, you can't be that harsh on this. And I'm going, I have to be, because if people are going by a foreign book that is dictating to them how they are living, how they are disciplining their children, how they are supposed to live by some foreign dictatorship and commercial zone, people have lost it. People don't live in reality. And that is the one point that we've got to get back to, start living in reality of what our forefathers gave us, not what we think it is or interpret it because some attorney tells us or some judge says this, that, and the other thing. Excuse me. That's why you need to know your rights. When you go into a courtroom, you need to know your rights. That is the main thing that people don't comprehend, that you have to know your rights when you go in the courtroom. People think, I can go in the courtroom and this is the way it is. It don't work that way, folks. You have to know, first off, if you're lawful or legal in this country. That's the main thing. You need to know how you need to present yourself in that courtroom. You need to know if you have lawful rights or legal rights. Legal is British government, Roman Catholic Church, called Christianity. People say, oh, Christianity and the church are two separate things. Please do your real history. So all I ask people to do, real history, you'll find out that I'm telling the truth. That is the one thing that people do not comprehend. What I tell is the truth. I don't have time to walk around and go around in circles on this stuff. And I'm waiting for my computer not to freeze up again. Come on, it just froze up again. I crashed my computer and then come back to it. One of those things that I've been fighting severely. Because it's been freezing up a lot lately. I'm trying to figure out who sent me a bug. But anyhow, and that's the one thing. I do not like to open emails from strange people. I do not do that. I try to stay away from it. If it ain't cut and paste where I could read it, don't send me a file, because I don't trust what people's files. Then they're done it. I'm not going to lose my computer for somebody else. And I know for a fact that happens. Watch people do that to one another. But anyhow, as soon as I get the damn computer pulled out, I want to get into these codes, because I want to get into the structure. Using a debt note is a federal crime. Because you can't pay debt with debt, and it even says that by federal administrative rules. And that comes from the Department of Treasury. Do they enforce it? No, they don't enforce that. Because if they enforce that, then that means all the business is gone, and that is the one point that under House Resolution 192, which I have a certified copy that I put up. I believe it's on the internet. I have not paid for a copy of it because they want to charge you to do this now. Scrub wants you to pay when you used to be able to print it off. And that is the point. Now everybody's out there for greed. There's no common courtesy, and they're writing it off, both sides, and they're rape, robbing, and pillaging. Welcome to your new government called the Vatican Church. Religion. Religion rapes, robs, and pillages, because without religion you don't have jobs. Without a conflict of interest and mind control going, oh, if you don't go this, and God is going to not forgive you. Who's God? Which God? Where is God? I don't see a God. All I ever hear is there is a God. What is a God? If you look in the mirror, I mean, some people even call themselves God. Look in the mirror. You're God. Hello. So, God bless it. Damn computer pisses me off when it screws up, and now I have to go through, open up 500 windows again and go through this shit I was just straightening out before it froze up again. Sorry about that, folks. It's just frustrating when you get these damn things that people screw with you. And people say, oh, it doesn't work that way. Yes, it does. When you got people out there that know how to do your computer system and screw with you, and they send you shit, and then people go, oh, it's Facebook doing it. No, it's not just Facebook doing it. It's your so-called Facebook friends doing this, because I've got so many so-called friends on Facebook, and every time I post certain things on different structure with different people, next thing you know, I'm being attacked on Facebook, and then I get blocked off now, because I've been cut off again until next week again for posting on this guy's deal this morning, and I know why, what, why, and how. Oh, come on, you goddamn computer. You can't freeze again. I just sat there and got you moving. Excuse my language. Excuse my frustration. But it's like, I mean, I know where the attack came this morning on this stuff. And that's what really disturbs me, is that these people do stuff all the time. You got people that you're wondering where you're getting attacked from. And you got to realize that there's people out there who don't believe in this country. They believe they're immigrants that have rights when they don't. They believe that this world belongs to the world, doesn't belong, and people don't have rights. Most people that are from foreign countries actually believe that you have to be a servant to some god or some queen like England, and that's the whole point. People are that ridiculous, that uneducated, unintelligent. Yes, I do say that. They're unintelligent. They are uneducated. They do this stuff because they don't care about their children. A lot of people don't care about their children. I've witnessed that with my own eyes, that they don't care about their children and love their children. They'll give their children right over to the state immediately. Oh, that way, we got to go run and hide because it's not, we got to hide for ourselves. We don't have to sit there and protect our children. And no offense, There are people who have actually done that stuff. I have actually witnessed that stuff actually happen. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I have witnessed it even on live structure on YouTube. You know, where people will sit there and give their own structure away. That is the one thing that people have to get the true structure of what's going on. And be careful of people out there that are trying to give you information and they're trying to, you know, charge you. We don't charge. I'm disabled. I'm fighting the system right now. Okay, but I don't get a paycheck. Nobody helps me out on this. You know, if I don't sit there and pay my bills, I'm screwed. Which, you know, I've got them attacking me right now. That's why I started filing the indictments on Cape around the governor. That's the one thing that is on Facebook. It's on my United States for America Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversight. Go to that web Facebook site and read it. And then I have it on Civil War, 1866, lawful bloodline Americans. The 14th Amendment was passed and ratified. Of course, I have paperwork that says it wasn't passed, so we know for a fact that the 13th Amendment was passed twice. I have the congressional records on that was passed twice. So once people start comprehending the circumstances of what is going on in our country and territory, that is the one thing that people need to realize, that the United States is either a United States incorporation or United States of we the people. There are two structures of the United States. One is British and one's American. That's knowing what the funding in this country is. Is it lawful or legal? And I'm going to get into that. This is the one thing that people do not comprehend with our structure called the British government. Remember, John F. Kennedy was assassinated for Executive Order 10000. It was executed for executive order that he was going to put back the greenback dollar. He was going to give men and women the rights to own their homes again. See, if you don't file to own your home, you don't own your home, you're a tenant. If you don't file to own your covered wagon, you don't own your covered wagon, your vehicle. If you don't file and own your children, you don't own your children, the state does. And it really is that simple, folks. And people say, well, they can't do that to us. Well, they have already done it to us. We're not educated. They stopped educating this country after World War II. Okay, because they knew that if they got people that are so dumbed down, and don't forget in the 1980s and 90s, they sat down and changed the regulations. So they made sure that a man or a woman that was brought up in 9th grade, let's say 70 years ago, they were basically a second grade college grad, second year college grad. Today, a second year college grad is basically a 9th grade education that was done even in 1980. Because they couldn't have one child smarter than the next because it wasn't fair to the other child, they said. Remember, that's called democracy. They said it wasn't fair to the other child for one to be smarter than the other. That's the hypocrisy we live today. We really do live this structure in this hypocrisy, and it's disgusting. Now, I want to get into, when we got this to be posted up on the site, there was a link that I put up on my Facebook wall, so it's called Modern Money Mechanics. And I do recommend people put that up, read it. It is 50 pages. It is right from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And it gets into the monetary value of money and debt notes, like when you take a mortgage out on your home
and what it is. When you sign for a mortgage, you're signing for that. And it's like I was watching a video where a guy was being arrested because he walked in and to pay off his traffic fine that he received, he was using coin money, real money. They arrested him for not paying in debt notes. Because see, the thing is that when you watch the thing that says a federal debt that keeps going up and up and up, it's that when every time you use that piece of paper that says a federal debt note, Federal Reserve note, that's the debt. That's the debt that the British government technically owes we the people by Executive Order 2040. The 1933 March 9th Bankruptcy Act. That's why House Resolution 192 was put in place. People said they rescinded it. No, they didn't. They can't rescind it because if they rescind it, that means they have to close the Federal Reserve down. That's where I ask people, please read the stuff. Read what you think you're talking about. Read it. Don't assume what somebody tells you. Don't assume what I tell you. You do the research. You prove me right or wrong. That's your responsibility. And it's your responsibility if you have children to educate them and educate them this. So anyhow, I'm going to pull up a couple of these. I need to pull up a couple of these so this way I can walk through this. I want to get into Code 8 of the 18 USC code. So this is the point that people don't read the codes. They don't read the Banking Act. And if you actually read the Banking Act, it tells you what a banker can and cannot do. It tells you the obligation, what they are doing. And this is the major part. Come on, computer. Oh, I hate it when my computer has a mind of its own here lately. You know, it's really sad when you got people that do this stuff to your computer. So 18 USC is basically the criminal code, and that's the one thing when you get your child kidnapped and held for ransom, or you get some of these things where they come after you, including the IRS, you have to file treason charges on these men and women. You have to file the charges, and everybody goes, well, that's the DA's job. No, it's not. The DA is an immaterial witness, cannot even put an affidavit in. It's a federal crime for a DA to put a witness statement in. Literally it is. So under 18 USC Code 8, obligation of other security of the United States defined. So Federal Reserve banknotes is a coupon that the United States hands out. Corporation, elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters. The coupon, and they know it. That's why when they put in the 1938 Bankruptcy Act, they did that for a reason. That's the financial reason to put it in. So they do this, and see, technically, when you go back in the 1800s, it was given out for gold and silver certificates. Today, they can put out a debt note that has no value whatsoever, and all you're doing is passing the debt along, and that's how they're bankrupting this country. They couldn't beat you and I and our forefathers, who are lawful bloodline, in war. They couldn't beat us. So they sat there and put these administrative rules in to destroy your families. What it is. To destroy the family. So, and then also too, 31 USC, I'm going to get into this because this gets into taxation. And people go, oh, we have to pay taxes because the taxes cover the school district. The taxes cover the fire department, which is all these, and the police department is all a lie. When you pay your income tax, your property taxes, any taxes, it goes right to the Vatican, the British government, the Christianity of the churches. That's why they call them a 501c3. And if you actually do the research on your local government, they're a 501c3. They are not a government of we the people. They're actually a government of a foreign contract. So, and that's the one thing that when you look at a W2 or W4 form, it even says on the form exempt from taxes. And people go, well, what does that mean? Mark it and don't sign it where your signature is. Put Title 8 USC Code 8, 408, Section D. Says if you give your Social Security number out to anyone, you could go to prison for it. It's a federal crime. So 31 USC Code 3124, exempt from taxation. That's your paper money. That's when you pay your property taxes. We're exempt from taxation. And I'm going to get into another part here that explains where if you use your debt note to pay property taxes, where it's an actual crime. So I'm giving you these numbers, and I've got it posted up. We'll have a structure. This will be under the mortgage structure of new.org and trackers. And probably we should put it on public notice too, that I sent in. But remember, the District of Columbia is owned by the Vatican and the British government. New York City itself is not part of the United States. It technically is owned by the Vatican and by the British government. New York City is. It is a subsidiary of District of Columbia. Real factual history. This is the other one, your tax structure status of interest and obligation, dividends and earnings. Income from evidence of the ownership issued by government or the agencies, and the tax treatment of gain and losses from the distribution of these obligations and evidence of ownership is decided under the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, and you can look up 26 USC. So they've already got this stuff already written in the codes, already got this stuff making sure it's exempt out of the taxation, and this is where the title of your property comes in and stuff. 31 USC 3124, exemption from taxation. I'm working on putting this structure up, writing this one up to set it up when I do this one, too, because I'm filing this on my property taxes, and I'm filing it in the Oregon State House and Senate here in a couple weeks when they open up the Senate floor here. You know, for public meetings and all this stuff again, and I've already filed on them, and I'm filing another structure I almost got written up for the right to travel card. And that's the point when I'm putting this stuff up. You know, if you see this stuff, call in your local state government, pass the information along, ask your senators and congressmen, how come they're not standing up for your rights? How come they're making your life a privilege? I mean, if you're not aware of it, United States, United Kingdom passed a carbon tax. So they tax it to the property tax, so they're charging you to breathe air. Because when you breathe air and exhale air, that's carbon. New England has done that. Australia has done that. England has done it. They're charging you for life to breathe air. We are actually living this right now today. They are doing this structure. I love it when people go, they can't do this. Well, did you file for your rights? No. Well, of course they can do it. So January 3, 2012, congressional bill, congressional recorded history of bills, public and private laws, statute at large, and that's what I've already quoted you, 31 USC 3124. Remember, that's a statute at large. That affects everybody. Exempt from taxation. And you want to go and find that and download it. I mean, all this stuff exempts you from taxation, and this is the structure, even property taxes. Property tax is a taxation. And I've even got Senator Greenlick on record admitting property taxes are voluntary. Oh, they don't want to tell you that one. It's voluntary, unless you are elected a public servant and registered church member. I've got videos up there with taxation where you got IRS agents going, well, I pay my taxes, and you got public employees going, well, I pay my taxes. Well, by law, there are statute, code, and administrative rules. They have to pay taxes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's mandatory because they created de facto dollars so they get a paycheck. Because remember, until prior to 1937, elected and public employees and government agencies were all paid in gold and silver until they went to the de facto dollar. And then when they went to administrative rules in 1940, that's when they started issuing checks. Not gold and silver anymore. So, I mean, it is putting the structure and learning to read what, especially what I'm bringing out to you on law is. You know, 3124, the public code, and that even goes under 12 United States Code 411. See, it's reading how they've got the codes back and forth, reading how they got the administrative rules back and forth, because they do this so that way it becomes interpretation. And that's what they want it is, so that way you feel like you have responsibility like a attorney or judge, and you think you're succeeding by doing something. And they do this deliberately because they know it's mind control, they know it's a mindset, because they've already spent billions of dollars on this to see how you and I and everybody else in this country handles these things. And the other one too is look up the IRS Department of Revenue Regulations, Title 86 Revenue. Once you start reading your taxation, your revenue code of each state, yes, they are long. Some of them could be from 11 pages, some of them could be up to 137 pages. But if you go through it with a pencil and paper, you will find out that, oh my God, you don't owe anything. And the obligation of the United States and corporations falls back on the British government, the elected and public servants. And that even goes to the supremacy clause of the Constitution. And that's where people don't get this point. When we put this stuff up, we put this stuff up for our education and your education. Like I said, I've been talking to a couple of men that don't pay taxes, literally. They're off the tax rolls. And so they're sent me some information, and I got it. And basically what they gave me information said, you're on your own because we're not taking liability because we've been through that one before. And that's sad because people sit there and they'll get something that they want to use, and then they go after somebody else because they didn't file their paperwork or do it right, and so they have to have somebody else to whine, cry, and bitch about. And that is the saddest part of reality we live today. That's why I tell people, you know, I'm no attorney, I'm no lawyer, I'm nothing. I have no title and no ability, and when people start calling me sir and all that, I tell people, please don't do that. I am not a sir. I am not a title and nobility. I don't want a title and nobility. I don't want to be part of it. I'm just another man in this structure that has been forced to go by the stupidity that is brought to our attention. The other point is, like in the state of Oregon, if you own a manufactured home, you don't have to pay taxes on it. You don't have to register your mobile home in the state. People go, oh, I have to register my car, I have to do this. Well, when you buy a brand new car, if you're fortunate enough, you pay cash for it, and you get the manufacturer state of origin. That's like when you buy a brand new manufactured home. You get the manufacturer state of origin. In other words, you're getting the birth certificate of that product, the birth certificate of that product. It's like a child. When a child is born, they give you a birth certificate of that product. That product comes, and that's where this one guy goes off on me all the time, going, there's no such thing as a lawful bloodline American. Well, man and woman, when they get together and they make a child, that's bloodline, because the man and woman and the child can bleed, so that comes out to blood. But see, men and women don't want to see and state that you have more rights than they do, because people come to this country, they think they take an oath and become a citizen or a national, that they have mandatory have rights. So I tell people, read Executive Order 2040. Nationals and citizens are determined enemies of the United States people. That goes to the 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act. Literally, as part of that structure, the birth certificate, national, and citizen are part of that structure. Literally. And it is knowing how the system works compared to what people think it is. It is knowing how life works compared to the way things work, because most people know the Bible better than they know their own Constitution. People can quote you the Bible, but they can't quote you a Constitution law. They can't quote the Constitution. They can't sit there and quote statute codes and administrative rules, but they sure can quote the Bible. I keep telling people, show me where the Bible gives you rights. And once you show me where the Bible gives you rights, then I might consider, to go that direction. But I've never seen anywhere in writing where the Bible gave anybody rights. It doesn't give you rights. Oh, that's like where everybody keeps going, I'm a Jew. Jews are from a foreign country, not American. And why the hell is the United States of America giving $2 billion to a foreign country all the time? And people go, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew. Well, in other words, so you rape, rob, and pillage for a living. That's what a Jew is. That's what they do. Show me one who doesn't. That's the point. I ask people, show me this stuff. Prove it to me. Nobody's been able to prove it. And then when I do my research, I come out and I show them how it really works compared to their own. I try not to be harsh or rude. What some people might say rude all the time. But it is coming out, comprehending what is really going on in the circumstances of life compared to what's going on around people's lives itself. Because you got to realize when you're paying your income tax, and if you actually sit down and read the IRS code, you will actually read in the IRS code it says voluntary. And then when you go through the IRS code, you'll actually see where it says that your voluntary tax goes to the Queen of England and the Vatican. It's in the IRS code. They wrote it, I quote it. It's actually in the code that says when you pay this stuff, it goes to the IRS. IRS payments go to the Vatican and the Queen of England. People go, oh no, it pays my schools, it pays my police department. No, it does not. Police rape, rob, and steal, and it's called forfeitures. Now that pays for their part of their services and their retirement pensions and how they rape children and cover that. Because when you're strip searched, it is a rape. There is no forgiveness when it comes to that stuff, especially for children. It is a rape. And that's the point that you have to comprehend the terminology of the circumstances of words, what they mean. Because people will sit there and they go, well, this word says that, and it's like, look up the new meaning, look up the old meaning, and read what people are saying about the meaning of the word. And that's the one thing that people find out all the time that they realize. It's like when I grew up, I used to use the word ain't all the time. It ain't this, it ain't that. And, and then my elders around me would say, would you quit it until it's in the Bible? Would you stop saying ain't? Or not the Bible, excuse me. When it's in a dictionary, then you can say ain't. But until it's in a dictionary, quit using that word because ain't a word. It's not in a dictionary, so it don't exist. I always love when people go, it's not in a dictionary, it don't exist. Who cares if it's in a dictionary or not? Depends on what the people say it is. Not some college, university, and a programming unit. As soon as people comprehend that one, this world would be a lot better off. Literally would be a lot better off. But see, people don't use what they call proper English. They use terminology of the British government. They use terminology called the Bible. And that's what they use. They don't use terminology that has meaning and what it really means by law. They don't use the lawful terms. Like I said, legal is British government. It's non-American. That is the whole point you've got to comprehend. What is lawful, what is legal, and what is non-American? That is the one thing that we don't get that point. We don't sit there and pay attention to circumstances of what's going on. And that is the one frustration people don't get. They don't pay attention. You know, and it's like when you go through the internet and then you got all these people that will attack people. Well, you have to comprehend, most people on the internet, a lot of them are cops. A lot of them are public servants out there to make a living. You know, they don't care about you. That is the one thing that you have to comprehend. These men and women do not care about you. They don't love you, and all they care about is making money off of the raping your children. And they do rape your children. I mean, come on. And if you actually type in McDonald's, human cadaver meat, and you even go to Japan right now, Japan is serving human meat in the restaurants. China's been serving human meat, cadaver meat in the grocery stores in China for the last 40 years. You go to the grocery store, 60% of the food in the grocery store is not real food. Not at all. It's not real food. Most of your rice in the market is plastic. It's not even real rice. And you can tell that when you eat rice and all of a sudden you get bundled up and you get cramps and you can't go to the bathroom and you're like, ah! Well, until it passes, you're stuck, and if it don't pass, it's just going to rot inside your body. True fact. But like I said, please go and look under the mortgage stuff on our website, Money Modern Mechanics. You want to read that, I recommend you print it out so you got it on record, because if they do take that off the internet and go after me, because I mean I still got to figure out how to pay the monthly fee for the website up, because it does cost me money and I'm on disability, and I pay for all this out of my pocket. I'm not whining, I just deal with the reality of life. You know, so does my associate that works with me on this stuff. We do this out of the kindness of our heart to educate people. We don't get paid for this stuff. So that's like the point of knowing what legalese are, what the legal system is, British government. And see, once you comprehending what British government is, called democracy, a democratic democracy, and people say, well, we're given a democracy because we're democracy, so I have a right to vote. No, it ain't tell you. But your public servants have a right to vote, which I believe that all public servants and contractors to the corporation called We the People, we are the government. You know, we are the ownership of this country. Not the Vatican, not some foreign structure. We the people own it. And that is the point, once we the people comprehend that we own this country and that we have elected and public servants. That we have servants. We don't have masters. We're supposed to be a master of your own home. The man is the master of his home. And if there is no man, the woman's the mistress of the home. She runs the home. Of course, if you got a good woman, she knows how to do both. She runs the man. So, and most women, some women do got that. Some women are out trying to control the man, and that's where, you know, men do the same thing. That's where relationships go awry. But this is the one thing, it's understanding what the color of law is. Color of law technically is a noun. Is appearance of semblance without the substance of a legal right. Misuse of power possessed by a virtue of municipality. Municipal. And state law. Remember, state law, city codes, county codes, state law, state administrative rules. There are administrative rules that only apply to elected and public servants. And actually, I've got administrative rules and laws that says that your public servants shall not have contact with you. That's the law. They're not supposed to have contact with you. But see, we're so brought up and been so convinced over the last 30 years that police are there to help us. They're not there to help you. And if you look, type in, police are not there to protect you or no obligation, you'll see the court cases up there where men and women have been literally shot like they are getting shot today in the United States. Where cops break into people's homes and they'll shoot them. That's the one thing I like about Illinois, and I'm going to try to get basically I'm going to copy Illinois' law and administrative code and put it in Oregon, because I believe if a cop comes in your home, you have the right to shoot him. The state of Oregon, the terrorist Kate Brown, passed administrative law that if they figure that you're a threat to anybody, and if you have arms in your home, they can kick your door down and shoot you in your own chair right there on the spot. They don't need a warrant, they just murder you. Right? This is called democracy. Democracy says rape, rob, and murder. Democracy says you have no rights at all. Look up the term democracy. Learn the real truth compared to what you think it is. People don't look at the real truth. They don't read the structure. They determine what something says without knowing what the words mean. Most people determine a word without even having a concept that they don't even know what they're talking about. And that is the one thing that people don't comprehend, this fact. And like I said, I did put this up on Facebook, and if you have my email, send me an email. Send it to me at least twice to 3 times. I will send you what I did on Kate Brown under the 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act. And this is the point that people need to comprehend. It's that simple. And actually, and if you ever get an order from a court that is rope signed, that is actually a crime. If it ain't handwritten ink signature on the paper that you can see and physically have the ink, it's a proven fact. But that's what I'm saying. Read this stuff. You need to quote this stuff. You need to put this stuff in record. When people go to court, I hear people all the time says, well, I went to court and I said this to the judge, and I told him, I said this is what needs to be done. And the judge looks at me like, what the hell are you talking about? You're stupid. Well, he is looking at you. You're stupid because you're saying that you need permission. You have to file your stuff before you get to court. If you don't file before you get to court, it says you have no rights. You know, it's like, you know, when they were telling the Bundys, you couldn't put this in court. Not acceptable. They didn't put it in their administration filing, and an attorney cannot do that because the attorney works for the court and the British government. They know it. You know, that is the point. They know it. And then when you get these things, I'm looking at another case where they were denying somebody their rights on the birth certificate. Remember, you have to know what court to take it to. And number 2 is you can always go to another court and take it to a higher court. And when you are taking it to your own United States court in your district, because most courts are district courts under the British government, you don't want to file your cases in district court. You want to file it in Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia Constitution Court. Type in the first court of the United States, first Constitution Court. That still is the court of the Constitution. If you do history in Philadelphia, they actually passed administration, what they call voters passed administrative rules, to disband their local court system. So they don't even have a local court system in the community there anymore. Nobody gets a traffic ticket. Nobody gets a violation at all. There's no court to go to. There's no cops in the town that has authority to say anything. And these men and women know it. But if you don't know it, this is how they get away with the stuff. You have to know your rights. And if you don't know your rights, and if you don't stand up for your rights, you have no rights. And it is really that simple. I'm going to save the wine here. So, it is up for you to know what a right is and what a privilege is. And so when you know what a right is, and when you know what a privilege is, and then you start comprehending that you have standing. And that's the one thing I do preach all the time about, is that you have to know you're standing when you go to court. You have to know if you're lawful or legal. And you'll hear people on the internet and these talk shows saying, oh, it doesn't matter, that has no issue, don't listen to Johnston. And I've heard people say this on the talk show, their talk shows. And then all of a sudden I got people that come to me and I give them this part or that part of the actual administrative code or congressional records and law of the Constitution. And people start realizing that if you don't file for your rights, you have no rights. And of course it states this. Our forefathers wrote a structure to protect we the people. Not to protect immigrants that the Democratic Party and elected public servants and all these people are yelling, oh, we need to impeach Trump. You know, we got this Muslim senator out there yelling about we need to impeach Trump. How the hell did a Muslim come in office because the Muslims are not even allowed in this country? Thomas Jefferson passed the Muslim Act, and that's why the Marines in the United States Navy was created to protect the people from the barbarian wars of Muslims. Remember, it's called religion. Religion destroys people, destroys family. Religions are racist. And people go, oh, well, you called somebody a name. Well, grow up, children. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. So what if somebody called you something out of deal? You walk away. Let them deal with their own mind, their own circumstances of their own crap. You know, once we start being adults, because it's like I grew up in San Francisco, you know, and people knew who was gay by the way they walked and they talked. People didn't go fight them, beat them up because they were gay and shit like this. Some people did. And then others that saw somebody beating up a gay man or woman, they would go over and kick their ass, and then people go, well, why did you do that? You're defending the gay because, you know, it's not right because the Bible says it's not right. Doesn't matter what the Bible says. You don't have a right to go kick somebody's ass because they disagree with your religious point of view. And that is the reality, and that goes with taxes and the structure of elected and public servants. Because, you know, if I don't believe in your religious point of view that says a woman should not have abortion because she's carrying a child, and all of a sudden you're saying that parasite has a right because it's a blood-sucking termite that's blood-sucking off of, or tick that's blood-sucking off the woman until it grows. Same thing what a tick does. Until it grows up, the body falls off and they create a new one. Sort of what happens with a woman when they get pregnant multiple times. I mean, you know, it's like we got to come down and start living in reality, folks, instead of what we're getting so confused to fight over racism. I mean, if you watch TV, everything on TV is racism. It's mind control. They keep going, racism, they beat it in your head. And then all of a sudden you start reacting to different things that you normally wouldn't react, and you wonder, why did I do that? Well, you were conditioned to do that. TV, radio, and everything already conditioned you mentally to do that reaction. So, I mean, these things have been already pre-programmed. They spent billions of dollars on programming. They knew it. The CIA and the FBI were part of programs in the 50s and 60s for mind control. Type in CIA and FBI mind control. They actually have the statistics up online. Think you know, the public servants do that, to educate that. I'm not against what they have done in the past because it's supposed to educate that to protect us in the future. But that's up to us how we're educating our children. When you send them to a public school, you're setting them to be mind controlled, and when you homeschool them, oh my God, you're going to find out that there's no separation anxiety. And the government goes, you can't do that. You're supposed to do what we tell you. Well, that's where I come off, where you have to file on these men and women criminal charges. You have to file that they threatened your life with a gun. Well, they didn't have a gun. Well, they brought a cop along to steal your child. That cop has a gun, so they threaten your life with a gun. See, don't look at what somatics are right in front of you. Open your mind and look at the circumstances around you, what, why, and how. Step out of the movie, watch the production. And you start realizing that these things like, paying income tax is voluntary. Paying property tax is voluntary. I've even got senators and state rep on public record even admitting to it. So, I'm caught in a bind right now on some things, so I got to file this paperwork on them, and then I have to file it in court, because I can't do a foreclosure on your home, even if you got a mortgage on your home. They can't do a foreclosure on your home until they took you to a court with a jury trial of 12 men and women. And that's the one thing you always want to file for, a jury trial of 12 men and women. And you specify in that jury trial request that none of them could be elected public servants or registered church members or contractors. And if you just allow them to pick their jury, that's what happens. They're going to convict you. I went the last time that the city of Toledo broke in my house, and I got convicted for my house being robbed by the cops. They chose the jury for me. What they do is six-man jury. Six-man jury is maritime boat law, not American. And these judges and cops know it. You'll have cops say, well, I wasn't taught that in the training academy. Oh, bullshit. They know it. They're told in the academy, if you don't basically rape, rob, and pillage, you're not going to make $100,000 a year. You're lucky to make 35. You rape, rob, and pillage, you'll make over $100,000 a year. It's a fact. The cops do make over $100,000 a year. They'll tell you all the time, well, we made 50 or 60,000, but they don't sit there and tell you about the bonuses they get, the income they get from traffic violations. Remember, violation is not a crime. A crime is personal and property damage. So your body has to be damaged or your property has to be damaged. Otherwise, they cannot make a claim. But it's learning how to write the structure up, and that's the one point that, we do have templates up there for people to read. And it's up to you to read this stuff. We've got the thing on the website, new.org and trackers, the 1938 Foreign Registration Act, where I just filed and I started submitting over the weekend to the House and Senate and the media on Cape Brown. She's not registered. It's a felony. Mandatory. The word mandatory is the structure of the 1938 Foreign Registration Act. Mandatory. So it's a mandatory felony crime, mandatory jail. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that these men and women get mandatory jail time. We want to make sure that because they don't have compassion when they rape, rob, and steal from you or put you in jail or take your kids. Their Bible says, do unto others, you want others to do unto you. We just want to show them the same compassion they already showed you. It's only fair by their Christianity Bible. And people say, Ed, you're always hard on Christians and stuff. Well, your preacher gets the information from the local cops and the courts. They know what's going on in the community. The local cops and the local courts know what's going on because the preacher tells them what's going on in their own congregation. It's interesting. I went to a public meeting after I just got out of the hospital for having another heart attack. And so I walk into a public meeting and the mayor starts talking publicly about, I just got out of the hospital from a heart attack, and he's like, oh, Ed, you got your heart attack stuff. It's like, who the hell gives you the right to bring my medical shit up in a public hearing? The law says I'm protected by law, and you're not supposed to do it. But these people have no compassion. They don't give a damn about the law because they go by democracy. We're allowed to do anything under the democratic democracy system. The Fourth Amendment guarantees us the right to a republic form of government. That's what the Constitution states. That's what the congressional record states. And that's where we have to quote that to our public servants. If we don't quote it, it doesn't mean anything to anybody else. Doesn't mean anything to you unless you know it. And then once you know it and you start realizing that you have rights and they start just doing this stuff and basically rape, rob, and stealing from you, when are you going to stand up? When are you going to stand up? And people say, well, I stood up and this happened to me. I stood up. Shit, they've tried to shoot me. They've damn near tried to beat me to death on 2 occasions. You know, I've been there where they poisoned me in jail and tried to kill me in jail a couple times. And all this is on YouTube videos and it's been out in the public. Been in the newspapers on the Oregon coast. So when people say, you don't know this and you don't know that, and you've never been through this, I've already lived it. I'm lucky I'm still alive by the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the Creator. That's the way I look at life. Without the Father, the Great Spirit, that produces life with the Mother, that produces a child, that the Creator gave us. Creator gives us plants that we get deer and elk from. And everybody goes, well, God did that. Well, God comes from England or Spain, a foreign country. They brought that Bible to this country. Native Indians and native people. Remember, native people are not just Indians. Every other color has been on this planet of the 48 states. Before the British invaded and the Spain invaded, and remember, Columbus really never came to the United States, and the structure that Columbus did, he never discovered anything, and he didn't sit down in a Thanksgiving feast that we get taught this bullshit in history. He raped, robbed, and murdered the people and took their gold. Thanksgiving. Another satanic holiday, which I don't have a problem with getting together, and, you know, people getting together and doing that, like, you know, even though Christmas is another pagan holiday, I don't have nothing against people get together, but when you're sitting there spending all this money on electricity, and you're spending all this money on gifts instead of appreciating one another, and it doesn't come down to anything else, but it's how much money you spent on somebody, and you value life on a piece of paper or what people spent on you, you don't value life at all as life itself. You know, I mean, we know that in history that Jesus wasn't born if there was a Jesus in December. I mean, there's conflicting information that came out of the Vatican that they created Jesus and all this stuff to control you. And if you actually go online and actually read some of the stuff by foreign ministers and stuff over the last 100 years, there's stuff going back to the late 1800s where they're saying how they created hell and God and all this stuff to control man so that way they got a free living. They were already admitting to this to get a free living. Have the peasants pay for them. If we could have the peasants believe this, that, and the other thing, we got mind control over them. This stuff was already written. The mind control stuff was way done before the FBI and CIA did it after World War II. This shit, if you actually do real history, go back to England in the 1700s. The nobles were already doing this in the 1700s. They knew it. The monks were already doing this, so that way they knew it. I mean, it's like, I suggest to people, do real factual history checks so you know it's really in history compared to what you think is in history. Because we've been so brainwashed on so many things that it's like property taxes. Oh, we pay property taxes supposed to go to schools. No, the money does not go to schools. When you pay property taxes or your fines in courts, most of that goes to England, the Vatican. Then the other part goes back into what they call administrative rules, regulation. They can spend it. I got a videotape with me and State Senator Arnie Roeblen, where I got him admitting, because I was like, you know, the road tax fund. Where's the money? Because we're not supposed to pay insurance. It's already in the registration of the vehicle. See, they already put certain taxes in registration or licensing fees already to cover certain insurance structures and to cover certain payouts. It's like when they sat there and took the property tax, eliminated property tax of the hospitals. Because when you paid property taxes, a percentage went into the local hospitals. Local hospitals technically were nonprofits, and it wasn't until 1973 where the hospitals started charging. And they really didn't come out and start charging until the 1980s and 90s. Because they had to wait for the administrative rules and everything to pass muster. It took them, 10 years, 1983, because nobody went through it, so they figured a decade, okay, we can start charging. So it's like you have to stand out and look at what, why, and how they get away with the stuff they're getting away with, like how they're getting away with stealing children. Because people don't know that the law says they can't do this, and then they go to their Bible and says, oh, God! Well, it's like people say, it's like I tell people, when I see God, then I'll believe. I have faith in the Creator and the Great Spirit and Mother Earth because I know that Mom and Dad create life. I see the deer and the elk. I see the grass growing. I know the foods in the forest I can eat so long as they stop cutting the forest down. And that's the other problem we have. So much of our forest is being cut. Some of which has been altered in the last 200 years. Altered. You don't have real food in the forest anymore. You have man creation. And that's the one thing that people don't get it. There's a lot of stuff that man has created in food resources that you buy in a grocery store. People will go to the store and they buy those Japanese egg structures. And it's plastic you're eating. Type in Japanese eggs on the internet and watch them how they make them. They actually make them. Chickens don't make them. The people make them. So, it's learning what the truth is. Because it's like, we're going through the structure, people are lying to their children about Christmas and Halloween. To me, it's a lie. It's like democracy says, oh, we're a democracy, we have rights. In a democracy, you have no rights. Remember, they took the ship and boarded this country. Raped and pillaged. Police are no more than road pirates today. True fact, true statement. The road pirates. And sometimes you do get an honest, and let me, instead of keep harping on the cops like I do, I would like to thank the elected and public servants and the police officers that honor their oath of servitude for their paycheck. And that is one thing that is very important, that we know who is the honorable elected and public servant and who's the honorable cop, because a cop is not there to protect you unless he honors his oath. The Supreme Court already says the police department is not to protect you. It depends if he honors himself or herself. If they have respect and honor for themselves, not to just write a citation. It's like people tell me, oh, this sheriff is good. And I said, well, how many people does he arrest for driving without what they call a state license? Well, Ed, you can't go by that. Oh, yes, I can. Because if he's supposed to be a good cop, he doesn't rape, rob, and pillage to fund the local jail for financial gain for the corporation of the state that sends that money to England. That's how the British government is rape, robbing, and pillaging us. If you even type in federal laws, you'll find out that England is the true structure of the finances. That you spend money in this country goes to England and the Vatican Church, and it's funded back through the churches themselves through Christianity. I've done the research. I've done the stuff where I've written this stuff and put it out for the general public. And I tell people, go prove me wrong, go prove me wrong. And I've had people try to do this, and all of a sudden I'll come up with the other structure that says, here's what it is. Do you disagree with this? And they're going, okay. So it's not that we're supposed to be arguing about semantics or doing this mind game back and forth that we're actually doing to one another. We're supposed to be standing together, educating the children, so the children are not there as pawns, so that way children don't go through separation anxiety, destroying people's lives. Come on, how many people that you know that have had their children stolen by the state, and look what it does to the kid. And then they blame the kid because the kid does violent acts? Well, shit, no wonder. The state elected and public employees are liable for the kid's violent acts. That's where, and then they put them on psychiatric medication. That's where these things need to be filed. the criminal charges. Then they tell people if you don't get a vaccination shot, you're going to go to jail. You file the criminal charges, because even type in FDA. FDA, Federal Drug Administration, finally came out and said vaccines are poison. Came out 3 weeks ago, finally admitted to it, because they were going to get sued and they were going to shut the FDA down. There was a couple of gentlemen and 2 ladies that were going to sue the FDA and literally shut them down. And when they filed their paperwork, all of a sudden they started going, oh shit, maybe we have to admit to some things. And so that's where we need to keep the pressure on our public servants, so that way we're going to end up putting the deficit down. People go, well, Trump said he's going to drain the swamp. Wake up, people. It's your responsibility. Quit living in fantasy, blaming somebody else for your problems. It's our responsibility to make sure that the swamp is drained. Now, he can sit there and he said a lot of things. Remember, he's the president of a corporation. I do respect the man because he actually came out and stated he was the president of a corporation. He's not a god or a king. He's the president of a corporation. It's no different than Trump industries he runs, and he knows it. But you have to accept the point that and everybody goes, well, he's a puppet. No, he likes living. How would you like to be in certain positions that you're getting your life threatened? You like living, don't you? I like living. I've been there. I'm told by the education I do with people that, I get threatened, and I've been threatened. So it's like, hey, if we don't protect the children, there is no future. Because if you don't do that, the FEMA camps are being set up right now, so that way they can behead your child. And remember, they do blood sacrifices, and children are missing. They go missing in this country, and that's what I tell people. First thing is look at states, because they'll ship a kid out to another state immediately and put him in foster care for financial gain. Title IV that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton passed under the Children's Act, 1996. Read it. They put in that deal where $125,000 goes into the retirement fund for a judge. They put in that when a child is adopted out, the caseworker gets $7,500 cash. It is a funding mechanism to set rape and rob and pillage our country. They know we believe in our freedom. They know that we comprehend what freedom is. Most people in the world, England, Australia, all these other countries in the world, they don't even have a fantasy thought of what freedom really is. They don't even know what the idea of freedom is. So, we're in a special country that we actually know that we actually have rights that were fought to give us. The Constitution gave us the responsibility to separate our religious points of view from the people. First Amendment says you're entitled to have your rights to religion. I do respect people if they want their right to religion, like I do, because my religion is different than most people's, because I believe in the Great Spirit and Mother Earth. I don't believe in the Bible. But the First Amendment says I have to respect your point of view of believing in your religion. So that means you have to respect my point of view, what I believe in my religion. That means you have a Constitution, you have to respect a woman's right. If she wants to have an abortion, it's her right. If the man picked the wrong woman to mate with, hey, shit happens. But that's the point of being an adult, being responsible. So when it comes down to the structure, like I said, I'll get the other template coming out with the actual laws on property tax and the structure. I tell you, read Title 18. Read the public laws that I mentioned earlier, 3124. Read this stuff. That is the point, that you need to read this stuff so that way you know what it means. When somebody says something and you have the evidence, usually, bring your evidence with you. I have evidence that when I travel, I always take a box, well, not a box, I have a briefcase I take with me with evidence all the time, like copies of my filings. So, that's the point. You have to be prepared. Never, never underestimate your public servants or Christians. Your public servants are Christians. Accept the truth. How many of your public servants, police officers, county clerks and stuff you see in your local churches when you go to church? And and you sit there and go, well, that son of a bitch did this and that, and they were involved stealing my kid. Hey, they go to the same church you go. They're just as Christian as you are. Why are you getting upset? See, I mean, that's the point where people have to sort of comprehend. Anyhow, I've been going on for over about an hour and a half now. I'm going to open up the floor for public comments. We'll let the guy handle that who runs the switchboard on it, and I do respect him to make the decisions on this, because that is the one point. I'm not going to sit there and have people go off on questions or try to come off. If you have a question, bring it up. If you have a fact to bring forward and, you know, we have to come up with something or do research and bring it out next week, we do that stuff. Okay, but see, the thing is that, you know, it's all about being respect, and if you want your case, we do on new.org and trackers have it, so we do publicize people's cases up there on public record law, so that way it's on the public record, and so when you have this situation, you can go right to the site, pull it up, and it's on public record, if that makes sense.
Q&A session has started.
All right. In order to get into the Q&A session, you hit *61, and I will go through the callers as they come through. Thank you.
So, don't be bashful. The floor is open. You know, and that is the one thing, too. You know, I talked to people since yesterday and this morning, you know, about their children being kidnapped and stolen and held for ransom. And the point is, and you can always get in and speak up, don't be bashful. But see, if you don't file these criminal charges, if you don't speak up, you think somebody else is going to speak up on your behalf? See, that's where people have to come to reality. And it's like I tell people, they said, well, the court said this. I said, well, take it to another court. Court says I can't do that. Court has no business telling you to do anything. The judge has no authority. The judge is not the court. And I posted those laws up. Read the actual laws. The judge is not the court. And you file that. And the thing is that you don't want to see a motion. Everybody goes, well, I need to file a motion. Well, a motion, you're giving the judge the authority to decide if he's allowing the ship to go through in passage or not. You insert your rights and you say that here is the law. He has to go by administrative rules of the law. See, there is a structure of who, what, why, and how to do things. You know, so, I mean, it is one of those things of producing the factual evidence. You know. And see, that's the one thing that, you know, we either read the paperwork when people file for their birth certificate, they file on this. Remember, file and own your birth certificate. Once you have the registration paperwork from the court that you own yourself, then it's called identity theft. You report your structure as identity theft. When the court sat there and put your social security number in their system, identity theft.
We have a caller, Ed.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Ed, 3124 is 3124 of what?
Let me get back to that real quick here. And let me give it to you.
Is it
No problem. I'm on another screen. It is 3124. That is 31 USC code 3124.
Oh, 31 USC 24.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, that makes a big difference with that USC in the middle.
Yeah, it does help. That's yeah. You know,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out 3124. Oh, hell, is that a phone number? You know.
Correct. I can't argue with that. You know,
yeah.
you got a point there. But like I said, the whole point is knowing what it is. I mean, you know, and that's the whole point, is that respecting one another. Go ahead. I'll shut up for a minute and give you the floor.
You know what I'm fighting with, and you know what I've been fighting with for years.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, like I said, how to get these charges brought about. I've got the proof I've got the evidence, the proof of their criminal activities, but it makes no difference to them because nobody's going to prosecute them unless I do.
Right. That is the point. You have to file it. You have to do it.
Yeah, the courts are not going to prosecute the courts. And in fact, they'll just commit more misprision of felony. And then when they get upset when you file misprision of felony charges against them for committing misprision of felony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the first place, the ex parte activities of the court with intent of their intent, the initial intent, it said in the letter that it was written with the intent of influencing the judge's decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
It was written with the intent of interfering with justice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amongst 4 people and held in secret. And I have the evidence. I have the affidavits. The affidavits were filed 3 years ago. But
well,
the actors of the state...
Go ahead.
The actors of the state refused to take charges against the actors of the state, and the federal actors of the state will only allow state actors of the state to bring charges. They won't accept charges from Joe Q. citizen.
Yeah, but you did get my filing on the 1938 Amendment Registration Act, didn't you?
Yes.
So file that on them.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do.
Well, it is true. I mean, we have evidence there to do different things. And see, once more than one man or woman does it, that's what I'm trying to get people to really comprehend. Let's say we have 1,000 men and women that start putting that sent it to the Department of Justice, make sure that the media gets that. You know, and more people start filing that, and they comprehending that here's the law, here's the rights, here's how it's supposed to work. They have to start doing something. Go ahead.
When I was reading that, it took me a while to absorb the fact that citizenship was relinquished. You have to you can't do it with one law.
Right.
It's a chain. And
right.
If you don't put together the chain right, put all the links in it,
mm-hmm.
and the hooks on the ends, it will pull nothing.
That's right. You can't catch a fish unless you put the right bait in it.
Right. So you got to put, you got to have the whole chain of. There's a sequence of laws there to go together. You got to show where they've relinquished their citizenship, and now they are foreign agents, and show the laws that prescribe that they are foreign agents.
Mm-hmm.
So and so when you're panning for gold, you don't throw in a bunch of bullshit before you start panning.
Right.
Okay, you're looking for nuggets.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So now you start seeing, and this is the point that I try to get people in conversations. When you start seeing this, how they wrote the system, and when it starts, you put it together, and you start writing on the system the way it works. They start panicking because they don't want the truth out.
Right, but I had to read it about 6 times before I caught on.
Yeah, no, I mean it takes some time
because it wasn't laid out as the chain with one link hitting the next link, hitting the next link, and hitting the link. Things weren't linked together when I read it.
Right.
Okay, so it needs to be in sequential links.
Well, I comprehend that point, but I mean right now I'm getting it out and getting it done so when people, eventually it's going to be written in the link, but the link is going to be written when it goes to court.
Well, yeah, what I'm trying to say, though, is if you don't have the secondary codes to go with the primary code, and
well,
if you don't
actually, that is in that instrument. It actually is in the instrument when you read it.
It is there, but it's hard to pick it out. It doesn't state you have relinquished your rights as a citizen, and you're no longer a citizen because you have taken this oath of office.
Well, not only that, but you don't want to claim to be a citizen at all because a citizen and national is a registered subject.
I'm talking about their status.
No, I got you, but I just want to clarify that so that way when people say I'm a citizen, you know, that they start realizing when they're admitting to that, they relinquish their rights as a bloodline American, and they're saying that they don't have any rights at all. They're saying that they're an enslavement to the system.
Well, yeah, and the same thing's true. I was watching a YouTube on England last night, and they're doing the same thing over there with the birth certificate and have since the 1500s.
Yep.
I was amazed the reason they pulled out of the EU was because the people stood up and they have a clause in their constitution that calls for lawful rebellion. And the people went into lawful rebellion and started opening another form of government separate from the English government, and the English didn't think they could compete, so they stepped back out of the EU and withdrew their treaties. See, the people refused the constitution of the EU, so they wasn't going to be governed by a foreign government. And then they turned right around, and Blair and all them just pushed through a treaty without the people, just walked over the people. So the people went into lawful rebellion. We didn't hear about that in the news, did we? Didn't hear a thing about that.
No, the news won't take me to tell you the truth.
Well, no, they won't. The people went into lawful rebellion and started writing their own IOUs instead of using their notes, instead of using pound notes, and started opening their own police departments and their own garbage companies, and started contracting with one another outside of the English. And the English couldn't compete with it, so they had to say, well, if we don't want to lose all of our citizens, quote unquote citizens, we're going to have to step up to the platter and undo this.
Right.
But it took numbers.
Well, and that's the point and that's the point that I'm trying to get people to comprehend, that we have to do the numbers like they did. And when we file our instruments, we are producing the numbers. So then that way it produces the facts instead of hearsay.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make sure that there's evidence.
Yeah.
And if there's no evidence, then there's no truth.
Well, there not only has to be evidence, but it has to be sequential. The chain has to one link has to tie to the next link, has to tie to the next link, the next link. And if there's no link between two links, it's two separate chains. And then it won't lift much without being tied together.
Right.
So anyway, I was curious about that 3124. What in the world you was talking about? Because that could have been a phone number as far as I'm concerned.
I got you on that one.
31 USC 24. Okay.
Right. And see, when you go into public law, they don't want people to know public law, what it means in the structure of public law. And that's why, you know, when I do my paperwork and stuff, like I said, they wrote it, I quote it. So I do the research, so when I'm putting something together, I'm using their administrative rules or the laws that they have passed or the court cases back at them. I'm using their structure, so I'm not using my words, I'm using their words. So what are they going to do, try to come after me?
Yeah, word of warning. Word of warning. If you don't get your status right, you're not in public law, you're in public policy.
You got it.
Okay, because if you don't have that hook on the end that says, I'm a lawful bloodline American, I've been on the soil for so long, and I was here before you set up your corporation. And I think it's best to go ahead and identify them as a corporation.
Yes.
So they know what you're talking. They know that you know what you're talking about. And then they don't like public law at all. They want public policy. That's why they threw away all the public law books in 1938, went into public policy.
Right. That's where administrative rules of 1940 came in place.
Yeah. So unless you're in the right status, public law will do you no good.
That's right. And that's the whole point. You have to claim it. You have to know what you're claiming, what you're writing.
Yeah, and that's difficult to do. Because we've been trained all of our life, just like jackasses get trained.
Yep.
To keep the blinders on and follow the row. And we were not ever educated. We were trained.
Program. Yep.
Yeah, I can train a jackass, and when I get through, he's a resource to be extracted, manipulated, used, and disposed of.
Right.
But I can't teach him how to influence the world around him.
Well, it's like the saying says, you could always lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah, well.
But you can drown him.
You have no power.
Yeah.
You're powerless without influence.
You got it. Anyhow, I think somebody else is trying to speak up, so let's let somebody else have the floor.
Good.
I was just going to say, you may not be able to make them drink, but you can drown them if they don't drink.
Well, that's true. It's like I was watching a Western movie not long ago, and the guy is walking down the road. What movie was that? Oh, God, it was an Adam Sandler movie, Ridiculous Six. And so it's like the wagon train stops for him, the carriage, and the guy goes, well, where's your horse? And he goes, well, the horse drowned himself. You know, and the other guy's looking at him going, what? And, you know, it's like, yeah, they know what's going on, and the horse drowned himself. You know, and it's true, the horse drowned himself. So that is the point, you know, of looking at the structure of what's going on compared to what people think it is. Yeah, you know, and that's the main point, that people have to comprehend the circumstances of life. You know, of what really is going on compared to what they're, you know, what they're determined, or what their statute or structure they give, or what they're programmed to think. And that's the one thing that people don't get, programming, when it really comes down to it. How many people are truly programmed? We all have been, and that's the point. Once we get to the point of looking over the programming, that's when we start going, hey, there is more to life. So, you know, so it is looking at the structure of what, why, and how, and if we start doing that, and it's like when, you know, when people put this stuff into place, and like I said, when I bring this stuff out and I'm trying to get people educated in this structure, you know, and we start doing this, is like when I filed on Kate Brown. I'm getting ready to write her indictments. I still got to do a couple more days of shipping this all out around the world. I mean, around the country here and throughout the state of Oregon. And once I get this shipped out, I got to finish up the criminal charges already started on her. And so once I get the criminal charges filed on her, oh shit, what is that going to do? You get where I'm coming from? Because people are reading this stuff, and I'm grateful that they are waking up. You know? That is the point. People are slowly waking up. Sometimes it takes a while for people to comprehend what the structure is before they sit there and speak up. So, and that's the whole point, that when we start doing this stuff, we can sit there and nail these things. You know, it's like DHS stealing children. A lot of people have that. I just emailed a lady that had her kids stolen. She finally responded back, and it's like, either you want to defend your kid, you want to know the law and research the law and do this, and then once you know it, now you have rights. But until you start standing up, you have no rights. And so, and that's what I tell people. Well, I was talking to another gentleman this morning for a couple hours. You know, it's filing for your rights. If you don't file and know your rights and what happened, how they stole your kid, you have to say that, you know, you have to say your rights and not give the state the permission to do this stuff. And that's where people don't get the reality of the law. Not statute codes and administrative rules. So it is one of those things that, you know, how to do things and come up with a solution. You know, that's the point. We have solutions to the problems, and now it's time to start acting. And yes, I do get where you're saying the way I put it together, it doesn't walk people through. I get people all the time that says, Ed, why do you write it so long? They're never going to read it. Doesn't matter if they read it or not. They have it in their possession. There's no exception for them to be above the law. Not at all. That's the whole point. They're not above the law. Never have been, never will be. So once people start getting that point, it changes.
Yeah. If I may add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that these people don't care about their administrative rules. And they think they're exempt from prosecution. And in our particular case, they held us in a false flag case that wasn't the adoption case and conducted the adoption in secret while they held us in abuse and neglect after the defendant was dead.
Right, but also
we was denied access to the court. We was denied access to the court completely.
Well, and also, too, you didn't even know about anything of the court or the education or knowledge that you have now compared to then.
Well, not only that, but we weren't allowed access to the record, so we couldn't tell what was going on.
That's right.
Because in child abuse and neglect cases, they seal the record. That's how they steal children, is by sealing the record and doing things in secret. They conducted the adoption case in a completely separate case number, and they held us in abuse and neglect. Now, the defendant was dead, but they held us as a defendant and ran false flag operations on us and adopted the child out 14 weeks before they denied us motion to modify permanency plan. We never filed a motion to modify permanency plan, but they denied it to us 14 days after they adopted the kid out in another case number.
Right. But that's the one point that you brought up. They changed multiple case numbers throughout the structure. They write different case numbers.
Yeah, and if you're not allowed to see the file, how are you supposed to know what's going on?
That's right, because they do that deliberately, and most people don't even file for the file to even read the file.
Well, we filed, and we was denied. Denied access to the file.
And see, that's where that should have went to a higher court in Washington, D.C., should have been processed to the newspapers. Some of the newspapers are finally coming out with the truth. Slowly.
Yeah, well, there are far and few and far between with the CIA owns most of the major media companies and are paying bonuses to people for putting out the state news. And if you listen to the news, you'll find out that they're all reading off the same script.
You got that one right, and the media is owned by a democracy called the British government.
And, yeah, and the CIA works for them.
So do the FBI.
Yeah.
And see,
yeah,
that's the point.
The FBI is not under the U.S. Treasury Department either. It's under the Department of the Treasury, IMF.
Right.
There's a big difference between the U.S. Treasury Department and the Department of the Treasury. They're not the same entity. So, anyway, I'll let you go on that. But
okay,
yeah, I wanted to point it out that
here pretty soon.
They do false flag operations, and they catch you in false flag operations, and you have no idea what's going on.
No, and that is the whole point. People don't know what's going on. That's why everybody keeps going back and forth with the British structure, and I keep telling people Britain is not your friend. You know, people go, well, the British people. Well, I don't know. The British people don't even know what freedom is.
Well, the British people are fighting for their freedom now.
Well, yeah, they're fighting for the idea of freedom, but not one of them have ever known freedom.
Well, they come out with this right of rebellion. I mean, yeah, and they did it, and they got there. So they found a way. They have a lot of twists in their constitution that ours don't have. That if you're smart enough to read it, you could find the twist.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've had a lot of corrupt kings over the last 800 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had to learn how to overcome them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's what we're living today, because, like I said, majority of people don't know when they get their kids stolen. They don't comprehend what, why, and how. They don't realize the financial gain that these elected and public servants are actually making off of the deal. And like I said, they're bringing in, let's say they bring in $9 billion. They pay out $1 billion in court fees and registration stuff, and let's say a handful of them actually end up in prison. So $8 billion that everybody else is making a living on, putting in their banks and their system, they're laughing to the bank, and they're going, who cares if we hurt children? And people always tell me, you don't get it, Ed. They're not supposed to hurt children. They're not supposed to do this. And I'm going, where do you come up with a fantasy that says that they're not here to hurt children? Where do you get this fantasy that people get this idea that they have a right that is above somebody else's right?
You're $3 billion short on your statement there. It's $11 billion.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, but you know what I'm saying.
and they expect the American people to pay for it while they steal their children and abuse children.
That's a fact. That's a fact, and that's the point of getting it moved up. So, but anyhow, we're going to turn the floor over to see if anybody else has got a word that they would like to chime in, and if nobody has a word, we're going to end up wrapping it up tonight, because we got tomorrow night, and so I'll get more information out as I do these research structures to bring the research, the laws, and administrative rules to you. Remember, laws is Constitution, administrative rules is British government. So once people start comprehending the separation of lawful and legal, legal is British, lawful is Constitution. And once
legal
people
is public
start
policy.
comprehending that, then we can start having freedom with one another. And we file this. Hang on a second. When we file the paperwork, that's the whole point. When somebody puts an instrument out there, and it sounds logical to put out there, let's get it out, sign it, autograph it, endorse it. And like I said, what this gentleman brought up dealing with what I put out on the 1938 Foreign Registration Act, Agent Registration Act. Yes, it's not written and explained in a dramatic way that it walks you through, let's say, a movie production would, but it's written in such a fashion that all the evidence is there, and when you comprehend the evidence, that is where the structure you need to know how it works. That is the point that you need to comprehend how it works, how the circumstances of it works.
Well, it does dance around a bit.
Oh, yeah, it does. Oh, I did that for a reason. I wanted to dance around a bit, because the thing is that the main point with that is you have to see who's intelligent. You have to have people think, use their brain, open their mind up. Because if people don't open their mind up, what the hell is the point of doing anything with them?
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to mention, too, that legal is public policy, the policy man. And
that's right.
Lawful is public law, but and legal is corporate. And if you look at FE versus GE, you'll find out that in legal there are no judges in the courtroom. Those are executive administrators. That's not a judge.
That's right.
He's a corporate executive administrator.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a CEO.
He's a black robe pope that works for the Vatican.
Well, I don't want to drag the Vatican into it, or Masons, or anybody else's religion. That's to me. That's
I do, because that's how they make a living. Religion is a highly profitable. Everybody says donate to the church. The church needs money. Church don't need money. Where the hell does it say that God needs money?
Well, that guy that's running it thinks he does, the executive administrator of that church.
Well, I know that, and that's what executive administrator of court does.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about it. That's where I get people. Open the mind, look at the circumstances, look how it reads.
Well, I go to church, I go to assembly. It's a totally different thing. There's no corporation involved.
Well,
But
okay.
that's where I go, to assembly. But anyway, I'll let you get off the air so you can get some sleep, because I know you're tired.
It's been a long day.
And I know you surely need some beauty sleep.
Yeah, even though it scares me too.
Say what?
I said, even though it scares me too.
Yeah, well, that's them stainless steel mirrors. The other ones broke. So anyway,
yeah, I know. I used the glass when you used stainless steel until you brought it up, man. I thought that wasn't fair.
But anyway, you take care of yourself, and we'll catch you later. And just
okay.
People don't comprehend the difference between a judge and an executive administrator, but the Supreme Court put it out there. And
that is actually a Supreme Court case, too.
FE versus GE, yes.
Yep.
The Supreme Court says the judges do not rule on statutes, codes, and policies. Judges rule on law. Executive administrators rule on statutes, codes, and policies.
Right.
So that's public policy. That's not public law. But most courts are policy courts. That's the policy man, and that's the policy, and there are rules on statutes, codes, and policies. That's all corporate.
That's why people need to research and know what the law is compared to what they think it is.
And corporate is fascism.
Mm-hmm.
When you have corporate government, that is fascism. And if you go to the 4th District Courthouse there in Beckley, West Virginia, if you look on either side of the door, there's an 8-foot-high fasci on either side of the door. You're walking in amongst fascism.
So, but anyhow, I really got to catch you up because we got to end this show because we got other things going on tonight, too.
All participants are muted. Q&A session is over.
So, anyhow, like I said, the one thing is I'm posting some of this stuff up. We'll have some of this other stuff posted in the mortgage structure for the banking stuff, and I'm going to be putting some banking laws up, and I recommend people read Title 12 of the Banking Act, Title 12. Read the circumstances of what money is. Read when they use money, you know, paying taxes and stuff, what the crime is. And so that's the whole point. We need to file the criminal charges on these men and women, make it bluntly obvious that we know the truth. So that way they can't run and hide. And some of these men and women, you know, I give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know because of the way they're programmed to think, the way they're programmed to do things. They don't think. They're just programmed. They're just a unit that's programmed. And so I have sent up a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to be putting up with the IRS structure on this. I've done research on it, on the lawful acceptance of money and stuff. A lot of it I didn't get into tonight with other sites. I want you guys to look it up, go to the website, do this stuff. I want you to research this stuff. We'll have it up there, and we want you to research it so this way you know the truth. It's your responsibility to know the truth. So, I mean, I can sit there and tell you all this stuff, and I don't want you to know this stuff by me. I want you to know it by what you read. And the only thing that is lawful tender is gold and silver, coin. Paper money doesn't matter. It has no value unless it was gold and silver certificates that they used to issue that they don't issue anymore. So that's the whole point, is knowing what it is, what, why, and how. Once you comprehend what, why, and how, then we can sit there and move on the structure. I've even got the other structure that I've sent that there's, I don't know, probably 35, 40 links, including to the Social Security revenue structure. And believe me, Social Security is not broke. Social Security has over $5 trillion in reserves. Research it. Go to the Social Security website and look up their finances. They actually have the link on Social Security to look up the finances. They're the only agency that people call an agency, but they're a private contracting government. They're not a government agency either. That's what we all say. They are actually a private corporation that handles money and structure for lawful bloodline Americans. And if you go on their website, they actually have a chart that explains their income coming in and their outgoing out and the percentage what they roll over in investments. So these are things that we can learn on certain things that do work for us, but it's up to us to do it. We, the people, have to do this. Remember, we, the people, are the government. And until we, the people, remember that we have elected and public servants that work for us, not at us, you know, that's the whole point. Everybody says, oh, let's end the Federal Reserve. Well, we end the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is supposed to collect taxes from elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voter. Remember, if you're a registered voter, it says that you need a representative called a state or senator or congressman, and you're telling the world that you're incapable of handling your own affairs. That's what it really means. And immigration has to pay taxes before they can lawful, because immigration, you go to another country, and if you don't have the resources to survive in another country, there's no welfare. Period. You come to this country and you're an illegal, even a legal citizen, you have no rights to welfare and food and all this shit. You have to earn your way. We, the people, have the right to go out in the forest and hunt for food. You don't. You haven't even earned your bloodline rights to be in this country. And that's the one thing that people have to realize that. I guess a couple people that go off and, hey, we get tired of listening to lawful bloodline. There ain't no such thing. A man and a woman make blood. They make a child. Hello? And it even says this in congressional records. It even says this in court cases. And it even says this in history when we fought the British government. So, and that is the one thing that, all this stuff is in real history. I write it, what they wrote. I put it up for the general public to comprehend. So when these people want to go out and slander me and, you know, say these rude things about me when they don't even know who I am, they never sat down and had a conversation with me at the dinner table or something like that, and they're out there slandering me because they assume something. You know, it just shows me how these men and women are so uneducated that tells me, you know, they don't like it because I'm telling the truth, and they're sitting there making their income off of everybody else that is, you know, paying their way, that's sitting there getting wrongful information. And we are working on the structure of 192. I do have that registered with the Oregon State Utility and Commission Board. We are working on the structure dealing with figuring out to write your bills off. So please don't get caught up in some of these other people that says, write it off by the IRS. And it's like, no, you don't get into the IRS structure because you don't want to be part of the British government. The IRS is the British government. IRS is not a government agency. The IRS has no intentions to be a part of the United States of a government agency. They're not a government agency. They are actually an agency of the British Vatican. King George left his IRS agents on this soil in 1789 when he went back to England. That's a true factual evidence and statement. So do the research, please, and know who, what, why, and the circumstances of what you're standing for, and knowing how to protect your child. And file on your bloodline. I put the template up there. File and own your child. When you register your child, you give ownership of that bloodline, your responsibility, over to a foreign agent called the Elected and Public Employees Union. And you're saying you're not responsible for your bloodline or child. So, with that, may the Great Spirit, may Mother Earth bless you, may the Creator look over you and give you the wisdom to stand up and file on yourself, own you, own the circumstances. And remember, the American Bar Association, when that was founded in 1878, which has a responsibility and liability to the King and Queen of England. It even says it in their own charter. The court systems work for the England government, the Vatican. the Treaty of 1213, the Devil's Contract. So, and that's the point. Read the Treaty of 1213. Read the Magna Carta. Comprehend why the Magna Carta actually became in place. When you start comprehending why the Magna Carta became in place, you're going to find out you're a lot further ahead. So, may the Great Spirit bless you and travel with you. Excuse me.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you all who have been listening and those who have spoken. Today is December 17th, 2017. It is currently 7:06 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you have been listening to Education by Ed.